The United Nations says that displaced families in Yemen lack any source of income. Houthi mine explodes in Hodeidah and injures a little girl. To help improve hard living conditions, the European Union and UNICEF launched Youth Employment Project. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. A recent report by UNICEF has revealed that the two-thirds of displaced families in Yemen are living without any source of income. This reflects the dire situation of the displaced, especially with the increasing military escalation. The following report has more details.
UNICEF revealed that nearly two-thirds of displaced Yemeni families have no source of income. According to UNICEF, about 64% of internally displaced families have no source of income. As a result, 2 out of 3 internally displaced families resort to negative coping mechanisms to survive. The UN agency noted that the displaced families not only have poor living conditions, but also acute shortages of services to meet their basic needs. UNICEF added that many displaced families have resorted to skipping meals, pulling their children out of school, or neglecting their health, scared to end up street begging. Over the past 7 years, Yemen has been plagued by one of the world's worst food crises, which claimed the lives of more than 233,000 and left 80% of the population dependent on aid to survive. Last month, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees announced that the total number of displaced people across Yemen has risen to 4.2 million since the start of the war in March 2015. UNHCR also noted that there are enormous humanitarian needs for these displaced people, while funding is very limited. New displacement is aggravating the existing humanitarian needs, drastically increasing the need for shelter, essential household items, water and sanitation, education and protection services. In a country where worsening conditions threaten not just the present but also the near future, the conflict in Yemen seems to see no end unless there is a real political will.
A girl in Hais lost 3 of her limbs as a result of a landmine planted by the Houthi militia. The 14-year-old girl, Zikra Dawood, was taken to hospital in Al Khoukha district to receive first aid, and then she was transferred to Makha as a result of her serious injury. The medical sources confirmed that the mine had amputated Zikra's legs and injured a joint in her right arm bones. An engineer was killed in northern Taiz by a sniper attack carried out by the Houthi militia. Local sources stated that the engineer Mahfouz Abdel Jalil was killed during a visit to his father. The sources indicated that the sniper of the Houthi militia exists in Tabet Hamid, where other civilians were killed and injured during the last period.
Houthis' crimes have been continuing since 7 years, especially in Taiz. This results in the killing of innocent children, women and old people on a daily basis. Houthi militias are sent to the city and sniper continues till Houthi crimes reach engineer Mahfouz Abdel Jalil. He was on his way to visit his parents. Houthi militia sniper targeted engineer Mahfouz Abdel Jalil, who was on his way to visit his parents. Mahfouz is not the last one, and we don't know who will be the next victim as long as there is no real response against militia to pressure them to stop such crimes.
Yemen Minister of Foreign Affairs conducted a telephone conversation with UN Special Envoy to discuss possibilities of achieving peace in the country. They further discussed the chances to revive peace and end the war imposed by the Houthi militia. Foreign Affairs Minister stressed the government of Yemen in support of UN efforts to achieve peace in accordance with UN Security Council related resolutions. The ongoing military escalation in Yemen seems to have diverted the attention from environmental disaster that could explode because of the FSO Safer oil tanker. This report has more details.
Environmental contamination problems that have occurred or are projected to occur in the Yemeni territory are being overshadowed by the continuing conflict in Yemen. The FSO Safer oil tanker, moored on Yemen's western coast, north of Hodeidah, is the most serious pollution case affecting Yemen and its nearby coastal villages. The FSO Safer used to receive about 100,000 barrels of crude oil per day from the Ma'rib oil fields before offloading to vessels for export. The tanker currently sails near Yemen's most vital and environmentally sensitive maritime area. The corroded FSO Safer now holds around 1.1 million barrels of crude oil, despite the fact that it has not been repaired since the conflict began in 2015. Any unintentional leak would result in an oil spill that might spread to nearby marine and delicate coastal environments. The massive amount of oil expected to spill could result in a humanitarian and environmental disaster, affecting the biodiversity of about 115 Yemeni islands in the Red Sea, coral reefs, fisheries, and other land and marine habitats, as well as hundreds of thousands of Yemeni coastal communities. According to reports, the oil spill may harm more than 3 million farmers in Tehama, potentially polluting their agricultural areas. Furthermore, the fishing sector, which employs a major section of Yemen's population, would be socially and economically devastated. Hundreds of thousands of Yemeni fishermen would become unemployed as a result of the impending disaster. The tourism industry would also suffer greatly, and thousands more jobs will be destroyed. All of this would result in greater unemployment, aggravated famine, and the economic collapse of coastal communities.
Dozens of Houthis were killed and wounded, and vehicles were destroyed in battles in Hajj. According to sources, the government forces fought violent battles with the Houthi militia on the fronts of Bani Hassan and Harat, after the Houthis attacked their positions in an attempt to penetrate them. The Houthi militia targeted the homes of citizens in Harid district south of Ma'rib. The militia targeted these houses with missiles and drones near Lasad area. A local source stated that the missile fell near a long line of citizens on Shakran station, where this area is all about civilian gatherings. 3 civilians were killed and 2 children were wounded by Houthi militia in Hajj. Local sources said that the Houthi militia has intensified its bombing with ballistic missiles and drones, targeting residential villages in Hayran district. Dozens of wounded of the national staged a protest in Cairo Governorate in Egypt. The protest was against government's disregard for returning them to homeland without completing their treatment. They further appealed the government to respond urgently to their demands and provide them with sufficient funds under the supervision of the Military Medical Committee.
The government should consider our suffering. We are in a dire situation. We call upon the government to take immediate actions to end our suffering. On behalf of all wounded soldiers here in Cairo, we complain to President Hadi, his vice, and the Minister of Defense. They should never let down those soldiers who have sacrificed their life defending the Republic and the country.
The European Union, in collaboration with UNICEF, have announced launching of Youth Employment Project in Yemen. This project would create more job opportunities for Yemeni youth in the areas of restoring heritage and culture. More details on this project are within the following report.
Nations are recognized by their cultural heritage, and undoubtedly, Yemen has a rich heritage that extends to 1,200 years ago. As a result, UNESCO decided to revive Yemen's cultural heritage and provide 8,000 Yemeni people with employment opportunities. UNESCO and the European Union signed a €20 million agreement to save the country's unique cultural heritage, backed by providing Yemeni youth with job opportunities. The campaign will start in June 2022, and it will extend for 4 years, aiming to be implemented in different governorates across Yemen. The head of the EU delegation to Yemen stated that the cultural heritage belongs to the past. However, it serves the future. Cultural heritage also plays a significant role in the country by enhancing sustainable development, providing jobs, and supporting the economic state of the country. The EU delegation explained that the project would focus on employment opportunities for young people, who will increase their families' resilience by protecting and preserving the essential assets of selected Yemeni cities. The project will also support small and micro enterprises and cultural civil society organizations to use culture and heritage as a unifying factor and viable economic growth. As the war has devastated every single field in the country, the cultural sector also has been dramatically affected by the prolonged conflict, resulting in higher unemployment rates, especially for youth, and severe scarcity in cultural programming. The situation has aggravated by the long-term lack of maintenance, weak governance of heritage properties, and scarcity in technical and financial resources. However, the project succeeded in employing more than 3,380 young women and men, rehabilitating more than 166 historical buildings, surveying 18,000 buildings, and supporting 485 artists and culture operators through 13 cultural organizations till now. This initiative came to give the Yemeni citizen a ray of hope in a torn-apart country that forgot the way to dreams.
Coming next. Internet access to be treated as basic human right and should not be weaponized by warring parties in Yemen.
راتب الواحد 120 ألف والكيس الدقيق ب18 ألف والكيس السكر اليوم ب20 ألف. كم يعني بيعطي هذا الراتب كامل كيس سكر وكيس دقيق؟
المواطن اليمني يعيش في أزمة إنسانية وغذائية مؤلمة من غلاء الأسعار وفحشة الأسعار وغلاء الصرف والعملة الأجنبية في البلد.
حالتي الحين حالة لما ندفنش القيلة ما نقدرش ناكل الأكل داخل ما احنا بحاجة صعبة.
Welcome back. Internet connectivity should be treated as a basic human right. Yemen urgently needs functional internet for a variety of reasons, including facilitating humanitarian assistance and supporting economic recovery when the war ends. Therefore, warring parties should not make it a target. The following report has more details.
Around 27% of Yemenis have access to the internet, which is regularly the target of military operations by both sides in the conflict. After Saudi-led coalition airstrikes hit a telecommunications infrastructure in Hodeidah late January, Yemen was cut off from the internet. The sector is being targeted as part of an economic warfare strategy because it's a source of cash for the Houthis. During the early years of the conflict, Houthis were responsible for breaking the key Falcon internet cable while digging military fortifications around Hodeidah. The same cable was destroyed by a ship's anchor in Egypt in January 2020, cutting Yemen off from the internet for weeks. As Yemen faces an extreme humanitarian crisis where 5 million people are on the brink of famine and continued daily casualties from the war, it's very important to depoliticize the telecom sector and make rapid progress in expanding affordable access to facilitate humanitarian assistance, economic activity, and normal civilian life. Millions of Yemenis are living through the civil war without access to information, contact with family, or online banking services. Yemenis lost access to internet companies, news, education, and social networks, as well as remittance from family abroad during these blackouts. The poor telecom service in Yemen is largely due to the failures of successive governments compounded by the war, which has been ongoing since 2014. Aside from the direct damage it has caused to infrastructure, the instability has discouraged private investment in the sector. The good news is that there is opportunities for improving internet access in Yemen, but these require political will and serious investment. Internet and telecommunications sector should be a priority for the peace process. The internet is a basic human right, and improving access would be a win for all Yemenis. It's time to pay more attention to this sector before Yemenis are pushed further into the darkness.
The Office of Culture in Taiz City has organized a big ceremony on the occasion of the National Day of Reviving Cultivation of the Coffee Tree. More details on the story are within this report.
50-year-old Rafik Al-Hammadi cultivates, develops, and refines his self-named coffee in his own farms in Al-Diba village in Al-Muwasit district. Rafik persists in his trade despite the shrinking of agricultural fields and the shift in many farmers' focus towards the cod tree. Rafik is a pioneer and an icon of Al-Hammadi coffee. With his deep affinity for the craft, he created a soulful blend that earned him loyal customers from all across Yemen.
We've been doing this since ages. We learned it from our fathers and grandfathers. Bani Hamad district is famous for growing coffee. We used to export coffee via Mocha port. That's why it was known as Mocha coffee. So it is a coffee we learned from our ancestors.
The coffee tree associated with Yemen yields by far one of the most widely consumed beverages in the world. Yemenis have honored the tree in their annual coffee festival on the 3rd of March. Taiz hosted a celebration on the National Coffee Cultivation Day in which blends were sampled and logged, and 10,000 saplings were distributed over 3 districts to promote agriculture and the revival of Yemeni heritage.
This celebration sends a message to all people around the country that they should care about coffee tree as it symbolizes the identity of our nation.
The Yemeni coffee revolution starts here. Under the slogan, 5 agencies which specialize in coffee production offered free tasting to the public, whose moods were instantly uplifted upon sampling the fine coffee of Yemen. The turnout reflected people's enthusiasm to restore one of Yemen's oldest crafts.
Coffee is the elixir of life. Back in the day, we wouldn't celebrate weddings unless coffee season was upon us. Today, our ears are graced by the melodic tingle of oud, the lute, as the taste of coffee fills our tongues. We hope for its revival.
The art space, which witnessed melodic music courtesy of the lute and a photo gallery overrun with fine art, is a testament to people's will to find beauty even in the midst of ruin.
The General Federation of Yemeni Trade Unions calls on the Yemeni government to raise salaries of state employees. The federation requested the government to pay all suspended salaries and to issue legal settlements for retired people. The union also stressed on the need to develop solutions for the displaced employees due to the war situation. The Yemeni rial suffers a new collapse against foreign currencies in Aden and other liberated areas. Banking sources stated the purchase price of $1 rose to 1,235 Yemeni rials and 325 Saudi rials. Due to the continuous collapse of the national currency, the prices of goods are rising, which has aggravated the economic situation in Yemen. Informed sources in Ma'rib revealed healthy corruption in domestic gas sales in safer fields. According to sources, the quantities transported to the healthy areas amount to 106,950,000 and gas cylinders and sold to the militia at 3,568, which paid with the old edition. The sources called on the government to adopt a unified mechanism for selling and distribution to all regions in Yemen. Houthi militia continues to fabricate crises in order to burden people who are already crushed by the 7-year war. A recent incident of such crisis is the shortage of fuel. The following report has more details.
Houthi militia has created a new fuel crisis in areas under their control in a move that will not only increase the suffering of the population but also reinvigorate the black market. The move stands to enrich Houthi readers and finance the group's war and political efforts. As to statistics, they show that quantities of fuel supplied to Yemeni ports provide sufficient quantities in the rebels-held areas. They also pointed out that the Houthi share from the Hodeidah port reached 60% of the total imports to Yemen. Yemenis accuse Houthi militia of continuing to unlawfully collect royalties and spending it on the group's leaders and loyalists. The rebels, in addition, spent money they illicitly gather on financing the war, recruitment and sectarian practices. Looking at Yemen's oil and gas industry, the country bombed more than 400,000 barrels per day 20 years ago, bringing much needed revenue to the region's poorest economy. Since 2015, however, output has plummeted to below 100,000 barrels per day. The fighting intensified in the oil and gas-rich Ma'rib region and Al Bayda province in the south. This violence has led to a devastating humanitarian crisis and prompted many international companies to flee. Without a significant refinery presence, the country is reliant on refined product imports for its gasoline and diesel needs. As security risk is still high, international oil companies would not return to Yemen which put much pressure on the population. Coinciding with that, warnings of funding shortages in Yemen are continuing to impact the humanitarian operation. In 2021, the humanitarian response plan for Yemen received 58% of its funding requirements, leaving a gap of $1.6 billion. As a result, aid agencies are being forced to scale down and close vital programs. Emergency food assistance is being reduced for 11 million people across the country, and the only victim is the Yemeni people.
Here's a reminder of the main headlines. The United Nations says that most displaced families in Yemen lack any source of income. Healthy mine explodes in Hodeidah and injures a little girl. To help improve hard living conditions, the European Union and UNICEF launched Youth Employment Project. This is the end of the news. For more, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Yemen Today English. This is Rushain Fouet. Thank you for watching.